Today we're going to compare the Oppo Reno 2 versus the Honor 20 Pro. Both of these are about mid-tier level phones, so price should be about the same. Also, they both have 4 cameras on the back. One thing that's pretty cool about the Oppo is that it does have a hidden front-facing camera, so I think that it's something that kind of sticks out versus the Honor. So this is a quick low light test of the front-facing camera, and I'm walking under this pathway with a bunch of little wall lights on the side and a bit of light from the buildings. So let's move on to the next section. Alright, starting off with the portrait mode, I gotta go with the Honor just because it's more flexible and I would say it's easier to use from my end. Majority of the time I just point shoot and after that it just works. And it has different focal lengths, so you can actually zoom in if your subject's too far. For the Oppo, you kind of have to move around and get closer most of the time to just get the effect to work. And I'm referring to objects, so if it's not a face, I would have to move around a lot, and most of the time it's frustrating to the point where I just don't even want to take the picture anymore. So the biggest advantage to me is just taking pictures far away and still be able to have the effect to work on the Honor. So to test this, I told Darren to step into the shot and both phones recognized his face right away, so portrait mode worked really quickly. And when Darren stepped out of the shot, the Oppo does not work in portrait mode anymore. I would have to move around and try to get the effect to work, and on the Honor phone, you can tell it just simply works without me doing anything. Alright, and now moving on to the general use of the back cameras. One thing I do like using on Honor is that it jumps from 1x to 3x, and I feel like that's a big enough jump to actually make a big difference, whereas on the Oppo it goes from 1x to 2x, and I feel like I can just walk 2 steps and it'll be the same exact shot. For HDR, I gotta give it to the Oppo Reno 2 just because I can see a lot more details within the shadows versus the Honor where it kinda just blacks out. And for the colors, the Oppo Reno 2 does represent or reproduce a lot more natural looking pictures versus the Honor where it looks a bit more processed and the white balance is also aggressive. And we will see a better example of that aggressiveness during nighttime. One problem I do come across with the Oppo Reno 2 is that sometimes the stabilization doesn't seem to work when I'm taking pictures, and this happens especially when I'm at 5x or during portrait mode. Now moving on to nighttime photography, I mentioned that the white balance on the Honor is really aggressive and you can clearly see it here. The slight yellow tint or tungsten look that's coming out of the street lights and even the Christmas lights on the trees are really represented close to the eye on the Oppo. So the colors of the tree is actually closer to a brownish look, whereas on the Honor it kind of just makes it blue. And when you switch to the telephoto lens, this is where I think the Honor starts winning because the processing makes everything much more sharper and the colors are more consistent. And another con for the Oppo is that during nighttime, the performance of the camera is not as snappy as the Honor. When I hit the shutter button, it feels a little bit sluggish. Like I mentioned before, the stabilization sometimes does not work, so I noticed that I'm taking a lot more blurry pictures at nighttime. For the image quality, I feel like you will see the biggest difference at 5x, so sometimes you will see the Oppo Reno 2 to take better pictures, or sometimes the Honor will take better pictures. For night mode, visually, I feel like the Honor Reno 2 shows a bigger change or a brighter picture. For Honor 20 Pro, the normal mode on that, I feel like it's just good enough for everyday situations to a point where I don't really think you need night mode. Unless you're away from the city or where you're away from a bunch of lights, then maybe that's when you should start using night mode. Now moving on to video, they both can do up to 4K 30, and for stabilization, I gotta go with the Oppo. It looks more like I'm on a gimbal, whereas on the Honor, I can kind of see those little tiny micro jitters each step I'm taking. Now you can shoot in the ultra wide angle lens, but the bad thing about the Oppo is that it only can shoot up to 1080-30, whereas on the Honor, you can shoot up to 4K, but the stabilization on the Oppo is still way better than the Honor. And if that's not enough for you, the Oppo does have ultra steady mode, which makes it a lot more steadier. For the colors, it's cool that the Honor does give a more golden hour look, which it is. The sun is coming down and technically it is golden hour, but the colors you're seeing from the Oppo right now is exactly or really close to what I'm seeing from my eyes. So if you're looking for more of a natural color camera, then Oppo Reno 2 is your choice. For low light, they're both not that good. There's a lot of micro jitters when you're walking, so technically I wouldn't really shoot low light with these cameras. And if you really have to, I would highly suggest shooting in 1080-60. I feel like that just gives you the cleanest image on both of these phones. One big pro on the Oppo Reno 2 is that it does keep its exposure control really well. Since we're shooting in 1080-30 right now, it's just an example to kind of compare to 1080-60 and show you how clean it is. So in the end, I feel like Oppo has the more natural looking colors and with better HDR. The Honor does have a lot more modes to choose from, the portrait mode is way more flexible and easier to use, and the performance is just way snappier during nighttime shooting. So those are the biggest difference between my experience shooting with these two phones. If you are interested, I do have links down below just to check out these phones. Please follow me on Instagram, give a like, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.